But the other thing I really want to concentrate now on is getting footage out. That's exporting. So the standard way of exporting clips from Premiere is you select the sequence, go to File, Export, and then Media. And it brings up the Adobe Media Encoder dialog box. You then come over to the heading over here, you choose a format, set your parameters up and export it. That's pretty much the same as it always has been. One of the nice things they've added in is this little tick box, match source or match sequence settings. A lot of time when people are exporting, the first question is, what on earth do I set with all these settings? You know, what are all these upper fields and lower fields and everything else? What do I actually choose? Well, there's a couple of nice little tick boxes they've added which really help you out. First one, match sequence settings. If I tick that, it's going to export something which matches the sequence. Now, the obvious things are frame size. I happen to be on an HDV sequence. My picture is 1440 by 1080 and it's upper field first and aspect. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. That's the size of the sequence. The other thing is what format's it going out into? It says here Mpeg preview. What is that? Well, basically, if I get out of this and go to the sequence settings, it's whatever this format is set to. So you'll notice here I'm on an HDV timeline. I've only got Mpeg iframe as an option. So if I was to export this and tick same as sequence, it's going to make an Mpeg iframe clip. What's an Mpeg iframe clip? Well, basically, it's an Mpeg file where every single frame is a whole frame. Iframes are the whole frames. They have B and P frames, which are the ones that save out differences, but iframes are whole frames. So it's a way of making a clip where every frame is a whole frame. So it's not very compressed, it's quite nice to use, and it's quite simple. And it's kind of the standard render codec Adobe use. Assuming it's set here as the render codec, that's the kind of file I'm going to make. Actually, if you want to make an Mpeg iframe file in Premiere otherwise, when you choose Mpeg 2, and then you'd have to come down here and fiddle with all this lot to try and work out what an iframe only file is, because there isn't an obvious iframe only render setting. Just tick that, it'll do it. If I come back to sequence settings, put this on something else like custom, and you have different options for the kind of file that you're going to make. So I could choose some kind of AVI file. You've only got a few settings there like uncompressed and so on. I could choose a P2 clip, I could choose some Cineform stuff, or I could choose a QuickTime file, and out of the QuickTime file I could choose any of the codecs that I've got on the system for QuickTime. So if I wanted to, I could make a Grass Valley HQ this way. And most of these formats are things which I can get to just by going to Media Encoder and choosing the right setting here. Like if I go to QuickTime and Video Codec, I'll get all those QuickTime codecs. But say what the match sequence settings does is it just uses whatever codec you've set in the rendering. I don't tend to use that one very much, but what I do find in particular is I really like these little tick boxes, match source. Let's tick that. That's actually chosen to do exactly the same frame size as the timeline, exactly the same frame rate, exactly the same field order. I can untick that, for example, and then make it progressive, but keep everything else the same. Okay, it's a very quick way of just making sure that whatever format I've chosen, it matches my timeline quickly. Nice thing they added in. Very convenient.